MrBeast is the perfect example of what happens when philanthropy becomes a business model. Like, we've officially reached the point where charity has a brand strategy, a sponsorship pipeline, and quarterly view targets. You see, this video won't just be about Jimmy Donaldson's controversies. We're not just going to talk about some lawsuit or drama here, because you're about to see how the public slowly turning on MrBeast is exposing the rotting foundation underneath creator culture, performative charity, and this sick little system we all agreed to where the algorithm decides what generosity looks like. We've been trained to confuse entertainment with altruism, to mistake a spectacle for kindness, to clap like trained seals as long as someone flashes a check on camera, while completely ignoring whatever the hell is going on off camera. And trust me, there's always something off camera. But here's the crazy part. MrBeast is still dominating. The man drops a video and 100 million people show up like it's the football match. He still has over 450 million subscribers. His fans defend him like he's their emotional support billionaire. So if he's supposedly falling off, why do the numbers look like he's ascending into godhood? That's where things get interesting, because the real answer says way more about how we bond with creators, how parasocial relationships warp reality, and what happens psychologically when the image we worship starts cracking right in front of us. For years, MrBeast existed in a space where normal criticism just couldn't touch him, and there's a very specific psychological reason for that. When someone's entire public identity is built around giving, criticizing them feels like you're criticizing goodness itself. It triggers this weird mental firewall where people go, excuse me, what have you done? As if you need to plant millions of trees before you're allowed to open your mouth. Just think about how this played out. Every video was someone getting a house, someone getting their medical bills paid, someone getting a life-changing amount of money. The scale was so absurd, it stopped feeling like YouTube content and started feeling like a religious ceremony. $40 million raised for his charity campaign for clean water. Over 20 million trees planted. Thousands of people cured of blindness. Like, how do you even begin to critique someone who's out here doing side quests for God? When you're watching someone hand a struggling single mother the keys to a paid-off house, how do you process criticism about that person? Your brain doesn't want to. Because accepting criticism means accepting that maybe the good feeling you got from that content was manipulated. That maybe you were the product being packaged and sold to advertisers through someone else's suffering. This is why MrBeast's specific formula was so powerful. It wasn't just entertainment, it was parasocial absolution. By watching him, you felt morally upgraded, like you were participating in charity by clicking a thumbnail. You got to feel virtuous without actually doing anything. So when critics said, hey, maybe filming desperate people crying with a giant check in their hands is kinda exploitative, the audience didn't just disagree, they attacked. Not because the criticism was wrong, but because accepting it meant they had to rethink their own role in this giant emotional ecosystem. But here's what's psychologically interesting. That immunity wasn't actually about MrBeast being above criticism. It was about the audience needing him to be above criticism. We built the mythology because we desperately wanted to believe there's a way to win at capitalism without becoming a monster. That you can game the algorithm and still have a pure heart. MrBeast became the emotional support evidence for that fantasy. And for years, that shield held, until something finally snapped. In July 2024, everything started wobbling. Ava Chris Tyson, someone who's basically been in the MrBeast cinematic universe since episode 1, got hit with allegations about inappropriate messages with a minor. At first, everyone involved denied it like it was a speedrun challenge. Then, suddenly the story shifted. MrBeast responded by removing Tyson out of the brand and hiring investigators. By November, the investigation said the allegations were baseless, but also casually mentioned, oh yeah, workplace harassment was happening though. Like, that's just a footnote. But here's what's fascinating about this moment. For some people, the investigation concluding meant case closed, move on, nothing to see here. For others, the investigation didn't matter anymore because a different question had already been planted. If someone that close to MrBeast had these allegations surface publicly, what else don't we know about how this giant content machine actually works? And that's the thing about cognitive dissonance in parasocial relationships. You don't need proof of wrongdoing. You just need enough discomfort that your brain starts looking for patterns it previously ignored. And once you start looking, you start seeing things differently. Days after the Tyson situation, a former employee called Dogpack404 dropped a nuke of a video. He accused MrBeast of faking content, rigging competitions, running illegal lotteries, hiring actors as contestants, and running workplaces that felt like the Hunger Games with corporate HR. Some claims were later disputed, some weren't. But again, the specific truth or falsehood of each claim didn't matter anymore. Because here's something people never want to admit about parasocial relationships. We don't actually evaluate each claim independently and rationally. We have a framework. Either this person is fundamentally good and these must be misunderstandings, or wait, maybe I've been missing something all along. Once your framework shifts from the first to the second, you start reinterpreting everything. The same video you watched a year ago and thought was generous philanthropy, you now watch and think, wait, why is he filming this person's emotional breakdown for content? The Ava Tyson situation and the Dog Pack 404 allegations didn't prove MrBeast is bad. That's not the point. What they did do was give a chunk of his audience psychological permission to start doubting the mythology they personally built around him. And once that permission exists, once cognitive dissonance slithers its way into the parasocial bond, you cannot go back to watching with that innocent, hero-worshipping glow. The spell breaks, and it almost never gets rebuilt. In March 2024, MrBeast announced Beast Games with Amazon. 1,000 contestants, $5 million prize, the biggest game show in history. Basically Squid Game, but sponsored by Prime Shipping. Filming began in July 2024 in Las Vegas, and what allegedly happened there is where everything snapped for a lot of people, because this is the moment the psychological spell broke. Contestants weren't just tired. People were getting hospitalized from dehydration and not being fed properly. Female contestants said they had no access to menstrual products, which is insane, considering this production had Amazon money behind it. There were allegations of challenges so dangerous they made Fear Factor look like a spa day. And worse, multiple female contestants said male contestants were behaving in ways that should have gotten them kicked off the set instantly. Then it escalated. In September 2024, 5 female contestants filed a class action lawsuit accusing the production of failing to pay minimum wage, sexual harassment, and creating a hostile work environment. And as of November 2025, that case is still moving forward. Now, you might be thinking, well, if this all happened, obviously people would turn on him. But that's not how human psychology works, especially when parasocial loyalty is involved. Because when Beast Games premiered on Amazon in December 2024, the reviews were horrific. Like, this show is a cry for help levels of bad. And Amazon still renewed it for a second season. So clearly, the hate wasn't universal. Most people didn't turn on him. What did happen is that a certain segment of the audience suddenly couldn't unsee something they had been ignoring for years. Beast Games ripped the aesthetic paint off the machine. It exposed the underlying transaction in all MrBeast content. People compete in difficult or degrading situations for life-changing money, while cameras harvest every ounce of desperation and relief so an audience can feel something. When it was YouTube videos with high production value and emotional music, it felt like philanthropy. But when Amazon slapped it onto a reality show format and contestants started describing mistreatment, suddenly it looked like exploitation. But structurally, what's the actual difference? That was the psychological breakthrough for many viewers. Not that Beast Games was uniquely bad, but that it stripped away the aesthetic that had made all the earlier exploitation taste sweet. Once your brain sees the mechanism, you can't turn it off. You go back to old videos and think, the person crying and thanking MrBeast for paying their medical bills, were they genuinely grateful? Or did they know their reaction was part of the content and that their payout depended on giving good content? You'll never know. And the worst part? Now you can't watch those videos the same way again. Here's something people never talk about when it comes to controversy. A single massive scandal can often be explained away or forgotten, but a dozen smaller issues piling up like a slow motion avalanche, that's when the human brain kicks into pattern recognition mode. And once that switch flips, it's game over. Throughout 2024 and 2025, it wasn't just Beast Games blowing up in everyone's face, it was everything. Lunchly, MrBeast's little lunch kit venture with Logan Paul and KSI had consumers finding mold in products still within expiration dates. When confronted, the response was dismissive, with Logan Paul calling a critic a clout goblin, like he's role-playing as a Reddit moderator with anger issues. Then there's the MrBeast Burger lawsuit, still dragging on like a zombie legal case that refuses to die. Reddit communities also documented mass deletion of negative comments on MrBeast videos. View counts are quietly plateauing compared to previous years. None of these things by themselves would shift public perception. But the human brain is a conspiracy theorist by default. It starts connecting dots even when no one asked it to. And when incident after incident keeps surfacing, eventually your brain goes, okay, what is happening here? This can't just be bad luck. What's fascinating is that different people hit this threshold at different times based on their existing framework. If you're still operating from MrBeast is fundamentally good, then every new issue has a ready-made explanation. The mold, supplier problem. Comment deletions, routine moderation. The lawsuit, just business stuff. You rationalize everything one by one. But if your framework shifted to hold on, this whole operation feels off, suddenly all those same incidents become evidence. And once your brain starts connecting those dots, it doesn't stop. This is why defenders and critics can look at the exact same information and arrive at completely opposite conclusions. They're not actually disagreeing about facts. They're arguing from entirely different psychological blueprints for interpreting those facts. Then 2025 arrived, and for a lot of people, this was the moment the whole MrBeast mythology didn't just crack, it exploded. MrBeast announced a partnership with Saudi Arabia to build a theme park as part of Vision 2030. Now, here's where the psychology does a backflip, because this wasn't like moldy lunch kits or lawsuits or rigged competitions. This wasn't a production screw-up. This was about values alignment, and values betrayal hits different psychologically than other types of disappointment. Here's why. For years, MrBeast's audience had projected their own values onto him. If you cared about helping people, you believed MrBeast cared about helping people. If you valued inclusivity, then of course he was inclusive. These weren't things he ever explicitly promised. This is how parasocial relationships work. We fill in the blanks of who we think someone is based on what we need them to be. And the Saudi partnership smashed those projections into dust. Because Saudi Arabia's track record on human rights, women's rights, and treatment of dissidents is not ambiguous or disputed. The 2018 murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi is not a conspiracy theory. These are documented realities. So for audience members who had believed MrBeast shared their progressive values, the partnership created an impossible cognitive situation. How do you reconcile MrBeast helps the world with MrBeast partners with a regime that systematically oppresses people? How do you hold inclusive and progressive creator in the same brain as takes money from a government where homosexuality can be punished with death? You can't. And that's the moment when the parasocial bubble bursts. Not because of what he did, but because of what the decision exposed about who he actually is versus who the audience needed him to be. The betrayal wasn't really about Saudi Arabia. It's about realizing you were wrong about someone you felt you knew. That the values you projected onto him were never actually his values. That maybe the whole thing was always just business. And what makes this psychologically brutal for former fans isn't just disappointment. It's that they should have seen this coming. The feeling of having been foolish. The realization that all the signs were always there if they'd been willing to look. That, how did I not see this moment is what converts disappointed fans into vocal critics. Criticizing MrBeast becomes a form of self-repair. A way of saying, I'm not naive anymore. I'm not the person who got fooled. So we circle back to the original question. If all these controversies exist, if all this information is public, if MrBeast's entire brand has been hit with more plot twists than a Netflix thriller, why is he still pulling tens of millions of views? Why do millions of people still defend him like their lives depend on it? Because this whole shift we've been talking about was never about the information. Everyone has access to the same headlines. The difference is the psychological lens people are using to interpret them. And that lens isn't random. It's shaped by age, values, personal experiences, how deeply someone is parasocially invested, and how badly they want to believe that a good billionaire or good creator can exist at that level. Younger viewers who grew up glued to YouTube don't necessarily expect creators to be saints. They understand on some level that personas are constructed. They watch for entertainment, spectacle, and chaos. Ethics aren't exactly top of mind when they're looking for content to binge between homework assignments. As long as the videos deliver adrenaline, they don't care if the moral foundation looks like wet cardboard. But older viewers, or those who genuinely believe MrBeast was the one guy who proved goodness could survive capitalism, they're experiencing these controversies like personal betrayal. To them, every new revelation isn't, oh look, another YouTuber being problematic. It's, wait, the thing I believed was proof that altruism could exist at this scale turned out to be just another example of the system working as designed. That hits completely differently. What's happening isn't that MrBeast is falling off. His numbers prove he's not. It's that the audience is splitting into two distinct groups with completely different psychological relationships to his content. One group always saw it as entertainment and couldn't care less about ethics as long as the thumbnail looks exciting. And the other group is going through a full-blown awakening, realizing they had been watching exploitation disguised as philanthropy the whole time, but never had the framework to recognize it. The truth is, the MrBeast situation was never really about Jimmy Donaldson. It was about what we needed him to represent. We wanted proof that an algorithm-powered content machine could still produce something good. We needed him to be the exception, because if he was, then maybe the whole system wasn't as hollow as it feels. But maybe we were asking the wrong question the whole time. The question was never whether MrBeast is a good person or a bad person. The real question is far more uncomfortable. Is it even possible to build an empire this big without the empire eventually becoming more important than the values that built it? Some people think the answer is no, and they're now reinterpreting every tear-filled thumbnail as exploitation they didn't notice before. Others still think yes, and they're explaining away every controversy as growing pains of something unprecedented. Both groups are looking at the same person, the same content, the same controversies, but they're seeing completely different things because they're asking different questions and using different frameworks to find answers. The Hunger Games was supposed to be a warning about a society that turns human suffering into entertainment. Some people are finally asking whether we've been living in that warning the whole time, just with better production values and a philanthropy aesthetic that made it feel acceptable.